Welcome to the Troubled Artist Podcast, Episode 1, Joshua Boshell.
Thank you for coming to the Troubled Artist Podcast. I really appreciate it. And also, congratulations on being the very first guest on my podcast. I am super excited for you to be here. Let's just get straight into it. Now tell us, who is Josh Boshell?
So, Joshua Boshell or Boshell, I don't even know like the history behind that name, so I just stick with Boshell. I don't know. But the history of me, I've always been an artist. I think that really, I have been a little bit of a troubled artist, but haven't we all, right? Throughout the years, I've grown up being in a very creative environment. I had a very supportive family that they're all very creative in all their ways. I grew up with like my mom was a singer and she used to be like a graphic artist and a painter and drawer. She made like several little magazines she did the illustrations for. My sister was also kind of majored in some art history stuff, my little sister. And then there's me, who I grew up with drawing and scribbling, but also one of the earliest memories I have was having this drawing book that I would scribble a bunch of stuff from my life through like either my toys or just places we visited, like the museums in Chicago, all of that. And then I would take it to my mom and it would be like, hey, I want you to write something on all the pages, and I would dictate what I wanted it to say, because I was obviously like very little. This is when I was like a toddler, like little. So I didn't know how to write yet, right? So I was like, hey, this is the train set. Let's go, all that stuff. So from an early age, I was already kind of being this person that would lead to what I am today, which is a film director. So I was already kind of directing people. And this is something that actually is kind of funny. I was just kind of reminiscing and kind of thinking about and doing some self-reflection because of this podcast. I didn't really realize that until that I had really done that, which is kind of interesting, I guess. But yeah, who I am from then to now, again, I'm a film director and a video editor. I specialize in narrative film and music videos. Yeah, I consider myself a very creative person. I have my own troubles as an artist, both just creatively and just in the drama and the economics and the business of it all. Coming from a very creative brain, the business side has always been something that I've struggled with, or not necessarily struggled with. I've had to put more effort into learning because it didn't come to me naturally originally.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, does that answer a long-winded?
No,
question?
yeah, no. I mean, this is just you just talking about yourself, and people that are watching this, get to learn more about you. But yeah, no, I could
Absolutely.
totally relate. I could totally relate with what you're saying, because also when I was, a toddler, I was also like drawing. I had like this little like little drawing board that I would always like scribble and write on, and sometimes I'd be like really ambitious and I would like start drawing on like the walls of my house. So
Oh yeah,
I
there you
would
go.
I would be doing that a lot, and kind of just had that sort of creativity very early on in my life as well.
That's awesome.
I didn't think much of it. I was just having so much fun doing it, and like you said, when as children, we kind of do this just for fun, like because we're going around, and I remember like me, my brother, my cousin, we would just have our video camera, and we would just record pretty much all of us just acting silly, ridiculous. We would
Right,
do
like
like
run
these
around. We're
little
all running around like monkeys. Yeah, I was the same way. We're just like willy nilly. I have so
yeah.
much footage of just me as a young kid recording random stuff. I used to have like dwarf hamsters, and we used to do stuff like that. I used to have like a bunch of plushy stuffed animals, and I would
Oh
set them
yeah.
up and do like the paper edit, with like the paper like titles and all that. Everybody
Oh yeah, yeah,
starts
yeah.
out. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I did that too, but not it wasn't with plushies. I did it with Legos. I would
Oh, there
get
you
like a
go.
yeah, I used to love collecting Legos as a kid, and that's kind of
Nice.
how it like originally started. I think I was wanting to do more animation, but I
Mm,
didn't really know like the steps to it. And once I
right,
found out through YouTube, I realized like, oh man, this takes a while because you're moving things little by little, and it's a very, very time-consuming process. So
right.
like for me, I would literally just record, and I would literally just be moving the Legos just with my hands. So there really would be no animation. I would just be moving, and I would just be doing the voices behind camera,
Oh, it's just
and
more
I
like,
would
hey,
do,
how you doing? How you know?
yeah,
Yeah, I got.
exactly. I would do that, and I was using like Windows Movie Maker, and like all those like silly little transitions and stuff, and
Oh, there you go.
it was just yeah, it was a really fun thing that we did.
That's way
But
more advanced than I was. So I started doing all these little
mhm,
videos in like, it was like junior high and elementary school, essentially. So I didn't really have any concept of editing. I didn't really grow up with many computers, which is an odd thing. I was like one of those kids that like my folks would just like throw outside because I apparently was in a privileged enough neighborhood where I could do that. But they just like threw me outside and I would just play it out in nature. So I didn't get much computer stuff. So when I first got my hands on a video camera, I would just record everything in camera. And I think that's probably what was in my head of how they made movies. I had no concept of editing. I had no concept of all these things. None of that. It was just like record button. We're gonna do an action thing, and that's the whole movie, and then we end it, and that's your video. I'm right there with you. So yeah, no, we you come a long way from doing that. But I guess we both have humble beginnings in that aspect.
yeah, and I think any artist in general can relate to that because we do these things, like I said, just for fun, and we don't think much of it. But then as time goes on, and we're getting this sort of support from our family and friends that we show these to, it's like maybe I'm onto something here, and we
Sure,
kind of just go from there, and we just continue doing more. Or we go to film school, and we're networking with other filmmakers and other artists. So it just takes those steps to really build this career. So I was
absolutely.
kind of curious, like, was there like a certain moment or a person that inspired you, like at that moment when you like officially told yourself, okay, filmmaking, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, well, it was actually there was a couple of moments. I used to associate it with watching the behind the scenes of various movies, like I think specifically Monsters Inc. I didn't really have any interest in animation, but it was specifically like just the amount of detail that went into that specific render engine that Pixar came up with to animate in individual hairs, which is a completely like normal thing to do nowadays, and it's advanced. But back then it was just like you had a bunch of guide hairs, and I had no concept of it, but it
Yeah.
was just like holy crud, there's so much into this. I want to be a part of it. I used to associate it with that, but now I realize that going back, it was my dad who showed me those things, and my dad was always around me with his video camera. My dad had I don't even know what type of video camera it was, but it was one of those really old ones that was either VHS-C or mini DV, or maybe it was even
Oh
high
yeah.
eight. It was one of those tape ones. And yeah, he would be around recording to the point where my mom would be like, "Hey, stop recording," sometimes, and then he still do stuff. But like I was around the camera, and I would always want to be involved with it. My dad would show me a little bit, but it was like I think I was still a little bit little to really comprehend all of what was going on with it, more than just like, oh, it's like this shiny thing. That was really what brought me into it. I think it was the Monsters Inc. thing though that like was really like a key moment that really like turned that in my head. Just in the attrition of my dad just showing me a bunch of behind the scenes of how movies are made, namely Monsters Inc.
Wow. Yeah. No, that's really cool because
Yeah.
I do remember watching behind the scenes of Monsters Inc. And yeah, like that, the whole process that they described of doing like Sully's hair. I remember just being like, wow, that's a lot, especially, back then because I think it was like 2001, I think, when that film was
Yeah,
made.
something like that. It
Something
was
like that.
very early. It was still like it wasn't like Jurassic Park era in terms of render time, but it was still
Right.
like it took a long time and a lot of computer power to get these things done. So it was like cutting edge stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think for me, like I said, I did like those little music videos and all that silly stuff with my friends and my cousins. But
Mm.
it was my sophomore year of high school. I had the chance to make a film for like a project for one of my classes.
Mm.
And at that point, I've only done like these silly little things, but I really wanted to try to do something dramatic. Like I wanted to actually like write a script and do the casting and get a boom operator, do like the whole thing like that.
Right.
And I remember just like kind of telling myself like, man, if I can manage to make this film, then maybe this is something I would want to do. But I didn't know if I would get it done. I didn't know how it was going to turn out, and I remember when I was like telling people about it, like outside of my family, like none of them really seemed that interested in it. You know, it was
Right.
really
Yeah.
just like my brother and my cousins and all that that were into it. But I remember just like telling a lot of my other classmates at school, you know, like, hey, I'm doing this project, you know, email me and that sort of thing. And I got like no emails at all.
Yeah,
But
that's how it goes.
but I remember like because I used to do cross country and track and field, and
Okay.
my coach, I just kind of had this idea of like, because in the film there's like a psychologist in the film, and I kind of just went up to him and asked him if he would be willing to do it, since at that time I was doing track and field cross country for about 2 years, so I kind of knew him, and thankfully he said yes, and so he was in the film, and my brother and my cousins and all that, and we made this film about, basically it was about like bullying and that sort of realm of like in high school, that sort of thing.
Right.
And yeah, like I remember even just like editing it, and I remember like filming it like even like out of sequence, because that's how I found out later, like, oh, they don't film it in order, they film it like in out of sequence, you know, and I remember doing
Oh, it's an interesting
that.
way to
And
find it out. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and then when I finished editing it and I just saw it like come to life, I remember just like at that moment, I was just like, wow, like, you know, I mean, and the film itself, you know, it's all right, you know, that sort of thing.
Right.
But
Of course.
it
It's like
was more,
first try. Right. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. But it was really just like completing it and making it, you know, come to life, you know, all that hard work finally paid off. And I have like a film. And I just remember just sitting at my computer, just sitting in my chair and just being like, yeah, I think this is what I want to do. And then from then on, I just continued to learn more about the craft. You know, I watched a bunch of YouTube tutorials. I would um, read a lot of filmmaking books and watch a lot of like behind the scenes of movies. And fortunately, there was a film class that was in my school, and I was in there, and then I really enjoyed it. And then from there, got into DePaul, and I graduated 2021, and it was awesome, you know, and I'm very glad to have that creativity in me. And you know, so currently like I'm still writing stuff, and I'm, you know, like doing this podcast, you know, like it's just
There you go.
another creative realm for me to show that creativity that I have, and meeting creative people like you, and you know, just building that sort of creative network, you know, so it's just really awesome.
It was really interesting that you brought up the idea of having an experience in high school where you had to make a video for a final project, because I had a similar experience. I got a bunch of friends together as well, and we had uh, the opportunity to make a video for the final project instead of writing a paper or something like that, which was really interesting because I think that might have been why the others were doing it. I'm not sure. I know all of us were like really geeky and nerdy in high school, and if you notice my background, it's kind of to say the same way to this day. And the movies, the type of movies that I make, but we were all into those kinds of into all these big nerdy blockbuster films, and we're like, why don't we try to do that, but as a chemistry project, as a chemistry final, talking about like cloning or whatever, and like the sheep that they had to splice the genes together, all that stuff. So it started with that, and then we ended up making like a whole YouTube channel. It was just all these really goofy, like kind of just leaning into like a very low budget mindset, because we didn't have any funds at the time. We were just messing around, running around with a camera, but we started editing, which was the big deal. That was the big deal for me comparatively to the key moment that we talked about earlier, was
Hmm.
that had editing and had a little bit more production to it versus having just the clip of the camera and running the whole scene and then with no concept of editing. Because as we know now, editing is so integral to telling a story, and having the juxtaposition between two different images is so it's so critical in getting a specific, or evoking a specific reaction from an audience that I didn't know before then. I didn't know that was even a thing. I was like, how do they splice those two things together? Oh, okay. I guess we can do it in iMovie on our Apple iBook G4. You remember that thing? It's like a white laptop that's was like a big, this thick, and by this I mean like a solid like 2, almost 3 inches thick. I think I'm exaggerating. It was a brick. I'm pretty sure it's just something propping up another laptop now, but it was my friend's laptop. We crowded around like a dinner table, and we were all just like splicing things together, and only had so much memory, so you had to like, if we had a long video, you had to export part of it and then re-import it and then into that part.
Yeah.
All those things. I don't know. What did you said you edited on Windows Movie Maker? Is that mostly what you were working on back then?
Well, back then when I was doing like those silly videos with my friends and cousins, it was Windows Movie Maker, but on when I did my high school film, that was on Sony Vegas, which
So you made the jump. So there was a jump there.
Yeah, like I toyed around with a bunch of like different editors. So first it was Windows Movie Maker, and then I used this one. It was called like Video Pad, Video Editor, or something like that.
I feel like I've heard
And then
of
I
that.
switched, yeah, and then I switched to Sony Vegas, and then I went to Premiere Pro, and now I'm currently using DaVinci Resolve.
There you
So
go. There you go. Yeah.
yeah, so it's amazing just how technology has advanced so far throughout the years. Like, I mean, you can write, film, and edit on an iPhone now. Like,
Absolutely.
I've seen all
Sean
those.
Baker, like, I mean, if he can do it, we can all do it, right? You know?
Oh yeah, yeah, that's yeah, and and I remember, yeah, you mentioned Sean Baker because I remember, yeah, watching. I think it was Tangerine. That was,
Tangerine, yeah.
one he filmed on his iPhone, and yeah, now he has like an Oscar qualifying film for Honora. So
Yeah, exactly.
but yeah, it's just really amazing just how like the way technology has advanced throughout the years, and like it's much easier for like this up and coming generation of filmmakers to have like those things now, like all these like iPhones that can film 4K 120 frames per second, and
I know it's like
you know,
even
yeah,
in like I'm not that old. I'm 29, almost 30, and so I'm not like old yet. But I do remember that when we didn't have that, we had, phones with buttons and just things that
right,
couldn't do any of those things. So it's still like I grew up with it. I grew up into that, but it still is mind boggling to me as well that you can do so much with just something in your pocket. Yes, it would probably look better if you do it with, big PL lenses and like a Red or an RE or a Sony camera, any of those cinema cameras. But it's the technology is still there, and it's not the technology, it's the storytelling. It really is. I know that's what
right,
every filmmaker says, right? I feel you look at any interview of like any successful big superstar film director, and you ask them like, what should I do as a new filmmaker, and they usually say, make more movies, and you can use your phone. You can do so much with it. It's really the storytelling that really dictates that. It's not the tools. The tools are nice to upgrade. It's like having, like a dollar store or an expensive like $1,000 dollar store, I guess, paintbrush versus a $50,000. I guess the scaling is slightly different, but it's like the dollar store paintbrush versus like like an artist opus. If anybody is in the nerdy stuff, they'll know what I'm talking about. Like a really high end like paintbrush. It's the tools are nice to have, but it's the artist behind it is controlling it, that you can work with limitations, and oftentimes limitations are better.
yeah, oh, yeah,
Right.
yes,
Should we
yeah,
talk? Should we talk about that? Should we talk about limitations? I could go into a whole thing on limitations and how that helps
yeah,
artists, but I
yeah.
don't want
No,
to take
sure,
too
go
much.
ahead, man.
Okay.
No,
Uh,
yeah,
no, I don't know what you think about this, but like I feel that limitations help really carve out what you need to do for a specific project, and not necessarily like here's a prompt and you have to stick with that. It's more of like you have this much budget, this much time. The actors can only come in on this day, these days. That really gets your mind thinking, and it gives you a lot of challenge to overcome, which is, what our characters are doing, right? A lot of times in our stories. So it's kind of interesting that we have to go through that as well. So I think it's more healthy, and oftentimes you get more of a better product out of it because you're pushed out of your comfort zone. Like if you can have unlimited amount of money, you can have a limited time, and what was the third one of that? I'm talking about that triangle. Yeah, if you had
Yeah, yeah.
unlimited amount of all those resources, I don't think it would provide a very good end result. I mean, case in point, Cleopatra, right? Everybody knows about Cleopatra. Probably a
Oh yeah.
decent movie. I haven't actually seen all of it, but it was like exorbitant budget. They didn't have much time on it, and it was just like, or no, they don't have like a time cap on it. It was just like they let it go, and it just ended up being like this whole kind of mess, right? Where
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just overinflated and the story wasn't that great, and yeah, so I think having like a limitation on an artist, even if it's painful and challenging, that's healthy and that's good to have to a certain point. I guess we should all get a little bit of what we want in our story, at least in our projects, because it's obviously coming from us and our dreams that we were born with as kids. When we were just talking about all that stuff, we're dreamers. We're dreamers, and we want to
Right.
keep dreaming.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think having those limitations really helps. There was like this advice that someone gave me a couple months ago. It was basically don't make the right decision, but rather make a decision right.
Mm,
Because it basically it means like you can have like you mentioned, like all of these ideas and all the gear in the world, but having so much can really be like overstimulating, and it can
oh, absolutely.
kind of help or kind of like just make someone be like, oh, where do I start? What do I do? But if we have like those, as you say, limitations, these sort of, okay, you have to do this, this, and this. And then it's that creativity that you take those three things and you make something very creative. Like you said, it's not about the tools, it's about the artist behind it. Because yeah, because I'll admit I was kind of a like a gearhead, I guess you could say. I remember just like buying all these like film gear and all that stuff and looking at all that stuff and like, oh man, I gotta have like that big camera or else I can't make my film, or I gotta get like this $1,000 microphone. I gotta get this and but then it's like, wait, no, like what the heck am I doing? It's like
You could
I
rent
mean,
all that stuff. You can find out. Yeah, you could rent all of it later. Yes, you don't.
yeah, you could rent it, but at the same time, it's like, again, like you said, we can make a film on a phone now, and we
Sure.
can, write it like on like Google Docs, like a script, or that sort of thing, or like there's other free screenwriting software. But
Oh yeah,
the
absolutely.
idea is just like using that creativity that we have and, building upon that. I want to jump forward a little bit, and
Sure, sure.
we mentioned about, like being a filmmaker and how fun it can be, but I want to kind of talk about the sort of struggles that have come when, as a filmmaker, as an artist. So is there
Sure.
like a certain like struggle or obstacle that you faced throughout your career, or is there one that you're kind of still facing, so kind of just talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. Initially, it was just really like finding the confidence for making decisions. Because honestly, at the end of the day, the what makes really a good director is having confidence in your decisions, right? And it's not like babying the actors and over controlling everything. It's having just confidence in your creative decisions because you're the creative person. And that was originally kind of what I was not really confident about right at the beginning. I mean, I think that's usually pretty normal for people. You have to learn some of that. I mean, for me, I was like I was a very nerdy kid, kind of a little bit of an outcast. So I was already just kind of like fighting for confidence in myself normally. So having this passion that I had to be confident in, I had to learn quite a bit just from experience, just doing it. So that was kind of a struggle that I had at the beginning. And also actors. For a while, for the longest amount of time, I would just work with friends, right? I started out, I mean, it sounded like you kind of did the same thing where we made our early first films with just casting our friends and getting our friends involved, because that's who we knew. That's all we knew. But I know for me, I was always intimidated by working with these people that actually knew what they were doing. And then once I went to film school, I realized that was the best thing about it, right? Because they know what they're doing. You don't have to teach them how to act. Like, a director shouldn't be teaching an actor how to act. You're just kind of giving them the seeds and the guidance, right? You're not teaching them like their method of acting, or Stanislavski, or you're not teaching me any of that, right? So, but I was just intimidated by that because I didn't know. I really didn't know. I was just I just saw these people that were able to translate words into these incredible performances, and I'm like, how the heck do I get from this to this? It was a completely new thing. Yeah, that was definitely a struggle for me at first, because it was just a big hurdle for me to get over, because I didn't know about it. Also sound, which is an interesting thing, because I work in sound department occasionally with my good colleague Emerson Cole, shameless plug, over at Noise Boys LLC in Chicago. They're great. I don't know which side I can't see because when I look off camera. But I have these headphones. These are my sound headphones. Sound was always a big thing for me too, because I didn't know how to get really good sound, and it kind of happened stance upon me that I ended up taking some sound classes in school, in college, in film school, and was like, that's really interesting. You can record sound not just straight into the camera. Because that's what I used to do. I would be like, oh, I could be the boom operator. Let's go. Let's do that. Let's get a boom pole. Let's put a microphone. Let's have the cord plugged directly into the camera. Perfect. And that is the way to do it. That's fine. But you don't get a lot of control, right? You don't have a lot of control. And I had no concept of a sound mixer or a sound utility or any of those things. But when I got into film school, I was like, you can record it separately, and it's not like exorbitantly expensive. Well, they're okay. Sometimes it is, but there are ways to make it so it's not exorbitantly expensive.
Right.
I had no concept of that, and then, like, that there was like so much control over this, that it wasn't just kind of a natural thing that you just recorded a performance. Because that's kind of what I had from like being that kid that just had basically a Sony Handycam recording plushies and hamsters and all of that. I grew up thinking that it was just this very raw thing that you were just pressing record and hoping to capture. So having this knowledge that it was, you could control all of these things. That was very enlightening to have. Other struggles. Okay. I'll go. Can I say one more struggle? Okay.
Yeah. No. Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. Cool. One struggle, more troubled thing as a troubled artist. It's working with people, man. Again, as a nerd, stereotypically, we're kind of a little bit hermitish or just socially awkward, or you have a little bit of social anxiety. I had to get used to like being around people more, and in film you really have to be a people person to a certain extent, because you're working with other people. Even if you're in sound department or one of those another department where you're kind of secluded, you still have to interact with people and work with people to make this happen, because it's a film. It takes a village to make a film. Yeah, you can make a film all by yourself, but there's a lot of limitations in that. I think can be a bad limitation. Out of limitations that we talked about earlier, that might be one of the negative ones. Like, you can get quite a bit done with like 2 or 3 people. Yeah, working with people is just always difficult, and you have to work with people. And even if you don't want to, or if you want to and it just for some reason isn't working, and at the end of the day you just got to get the project done. You have to make decisions that are difficult and try the best to have everybody included on that conversation. But at the end of the day, as like a producer or a director or somebody else like above the line like that, it's your job to get the project done. You have to make calls. I've had to make calls that made people not very happy with me. I mean, it's not my job for them to like me, it's unfortunate when people don't like you because of that. But at the same time, it's like, sometimes I'm seeing the bigger picture, and you have to make a project, and you have to get the project done, especially if there's like investors or there's people that are depending on you to get that done. If you don't get it done because somebody is unhappy about it, that's really unfortunate. I mean, I guess there are different levels of extremity with that, but just for instance, it was like my thesis film in school. I made this thesis film about old Vietnam War vet, and it was like him having these PTSD flashbacks, and it revealed that he like had his war buddy died, and he thought it was his fault, and I show it through a lot of these like kind of horror PTSD flashbacks. It's a great little film, but it was under a lot of high pressure because we shot it in like the peak of COVID. It was like 2020 or 2021. Oh no, it was 2021. It was definitely 2021. It was a year later, but it was still under like very much like there was a lot of lockdown or very strict things going, especially at the school. The school was very strict for good reason. I'm not complaining about that, but it was a lot. There was a lot of extra pressure put on the crew with not enough resources and not enough time or personnel to do what we needed to do, but we still needed to do it. So I had to make certain calls, and certain people didn't like some of those calls. But at the end of the day, sometimes you gotta get that done. I'm not saying that you should put people in danger. I don't think that should be. I want to just make that point because there's been so much in the news and so much in the industry about just safety. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if people don't have to be happy. You just need to make sure you get the job done. If you've signed things and you're contractually obligated to get things done, you need to get it done. And as the leader, that's your job to make those decisions, right? Mm-hmm. They're tough decisions. Yeah, that was always a struggle. That was a struggle for me because I had to I burned bridges with a couple of people on that project just because of that. And it wasn't like I was mean to them or anything. It was just like they wanted something because they were a student and they were working on it, and I was like, we don't have time for that. And like we had we had meetings about it. I gave them ample opportunity, and there was just it was just an unfortunate situation. And I wish them the best. They're a great. Everybody on that set was fantastic, including the folks that disagree with me. But and at the end of the day, we got the project done. It got out there. It was in several film festivals. It won, or I don't know if it won, but it was screened at several film festivals, and it was like officially selected and all of that. But yeah, it was just like you have to be willing to make these difficult decisions, in order to get the project done, right?
Yeah.
Have you had anything like that? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely like that sort of lack of confidence that you mentioned. That's something that kind of followed me throughout my life because just in general, I've sort of been this sort of introverted person. So
join the party.
yeah, so it was definitely, interesting to say, I'm an introvert, but at the same time I want to be a film director because you're sort of like everyone looks at you for, like you say, the answers and for the directions of what you're going to do and where it's going to go. And so you are becoming the leader. And I think for me, there is something about it, like being a leader or kind of putting myself like in that situation that really helped me sort of come out of my shell a little bit and just doing something so creative and like you say, like the challenges and going back to the limitations and that sort of thing. It really makes you think outside of the box. And that's just something that I found to really, really love. And yeah, like I've also had to make tough decisions as well, because I did a film last year. It's currently going through film festivals as well.
Oh, congrats.
But yeah, thank you. But there were some moments like on set where certain shots would be pretty difficult to film. I sort of had to you have like these quick thinking skills, like, oh, okay, got to compromise. Okay, if we can get it in like a close up, maybe we can get in like a wide shot, or just kind of like dolly in, or so just like having like little like sort of backups to still get the point across, but to make it something like much more simpler. So I've had to make like sort of decisions like that. And then there's also people on the crew that have ideas of their own. And I'm always someone that is always open to any ideas. To anybody that has an idea, I encourage them to talk to me. And some ideas that they give me is something that I sometimes ultimately end up doing in the film. And it's again, so just really listening to these person's ideas, because a great idea can come from anyone. It could come from a your producer, or it could come from a production assistant, so
Sure.
ideas like that really are beneficial, and sometimes if there is someone that is kind of slacking or not really paying attention and that sort of thing. I had to deal with that, especially at my time at DePaul University, where someone was kind of, not doing the work, not showing up, that sort of thing. And there were moments where I kind of had to pull them aside and be like, hey, listen, we're on a deadline. We got to do this. Let's quit goofing around. Let's go, and they would understand. And then they would try to do their work better and try to show up on time, so you have to be sort of direct as a director, and you doing that sort of thing again just really helped me find confidence in myself. And I mean, I'm not like a totally confident person, like there are moments where it's kind of tough for me, and like you say, like meeting new people and kind of networking, but at the same time it is extremely beneficial because you're meeting these new people and they have ideas and they have sort of solutions and this sort of thing. And you just gain so much knowledge working with new people as opposed to just trying to do everything yourself. Yeah, man,
Absolutely.
I totally relate.
And making that transition, because I've seen it from myself and also from the outside perspective on so many filmmakers that I've either mentored or I've just worked with. It's really just like it's really having the ability to trust your team, because you've brought these people on that are specialists in their specific area, and they're there to help you, right? So yes, they'll have ideas that can come in and help you that they've seen. Yes, you're supposed to be there to decide whether or not that actually fits in the grand scheme of things. But I've just seen it so many times where there's like uh, people transitioning from being that solo filmmaker to being in the environment of like a 30 plus person crew or more, 30 to 100. They have troubles like either conveying that, that vision, which is makes sense, or just really trusting their team, right? And it really comes down to that. You really need to be able to trust your team. And that's why it becomes it's such a difficult kind of gray area when you have somebody who on your team that you end up not being able to trust, or just that you have disagreements with, right? That's always tough, because you still need to be able to trust them to do their job and to help convey the vision that you're putting forward. And also because it's not there's a certain mentality that it's like that it's not necessarily just your vision anymore. Like, yes, it was 100% your vision at the beginning, and you're holding the whole thing together by just surveying and like guiding everybody back onto the path because they keep scattering, and you're going like this is what I like, this is what I think what directing is. It's kind of like you're doing this, you're not shoving people, you're just kind of like gently tapping them back into place. Yeah, a little weighing too. Yeah. But it becomes more difficult when you can't, when somebody is not necessarily untrustworthy, but you have a big disagreement with, and they're difficult to work with. It's so much better when you can trust people. And yeah, but yeah, just for other folks out there who maybe are newer to filmmaking or whatnot, trust your people that you hire. That's why you're hiring them, because you're delegating the work out so you don't have to do it, right? So they're making it so you don't have to be operating the camera. If I'm speaking from the director's perspective, right? You're hiring them so you don't have to be operating the camera, so you don't have to be getting coffee, so you don't have to be like handing out scripts or like miking people or any of the other plethora of jobs. They're making it so you can focus on the performance, on like the shots, all the stuff that you want to focus on. So trust your team. Yes, you should always be critical of everybody, but don't be too critical. Trust that they can do their job and give them the benefit of the doubt first, right?
Yeah, definitely, man. Yeah, I totally agree, and I can relate with that, and that's something. Yeah, that's something I'll definitely keep in mind, and I'm sure people that are listening to this podcast, that I'm sure you just kind of opened their eyes, like, wow, I never thought of that. So yeah, I really do appreciate your input on that.
Yeah, no problem.
I want to talk about, because you did mention this project that you recently did
Absolutely.
called Something Somewhere.
Yeah.
I saw you sent the link to me, and I saw
Mhm.
the film, and
You did.
I did, yeah, and yeah, I loved it, especially like Yeah, especially like, making a short film, like especially on a low budget, is really tough for one thing, but to do it in a sci-fi genre is like a whole nother beast. I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen I've seen examples even at DePaul, like where they try to do a sci-fi film and it's usually just like very corny and like alien, like they just try to make it like kind of funny or that sort of thing because it's a very visual effects heavy topic and a bunch of exposition and that sort of
It is
thing.
the most expensive genre.
It is, yeah. So I definitely applaud you for doing that and doing it very well. I mean, not just
Thanks.
your directing, but the whole cast and crew, they did such a great job, and the visual effects were also very, very amazing. Whoever you got to do that did it very well because I remember doing visual effects even like recently and they just don't turn out that well. So to just see it done very well, it's just like, oh wow, that's so again that's really awesome.
Thank you.
Do you want to
That means a lot, man. It means a lot.
yeah do you want to describe or just like a synopsis of the film?
Yeah, you want me to, I'll do here. I'll do my pitch here. I'm better at describing the thing raw, but I want to at least give you the log line first from the marketing department, aka myself and the producer.
Mm,
So the movie's called Something Somewhere. It came out last spring. The log line is: after a college jock sees two mysterious orbs of light in the sky, he meets up with an estranged friend to confirm if what he saw was extraterrestrial. So essentially, it's like a sci-fi adventure movie about a broken friendship that's like thrown back together. From a close encounter, and stuff goes wrong because of like mind control and weird things with the aliens themselves. And so the question just really posed in the film is, will the friendship come back together, or will it be like, thrown apart, or will it be abducted? All of that stuff. What will happen? Find out if you watch the movie. I won't spoil the ending, but yeah, it's really interesting that you brought up like sci-fi and all of that. I do want to be very transparent here. This wasn't like a super low budget movie. The original budget was about 10K, and then that was when we originally wrote like the first script, and then after getting in more development, we're like, yeah, this is going to cost a lot more. So I think it ended up being probably around 20K, which at the time was one of the more higher budget short films filmed in the area at the time, as far as I was aware. That's just hearsay. Don't quote me on that, but that's what I was told. So I want to be fully transparent. It wasn't like super low budget. That being said, we did pull a lot of favors and did a lot of low budget thinking with it because there was still a lot of limitations. We were thinking of like locations. That's what we thought of first. One of the things I learned in film school was one of the first things you really should do besides just finishing the script and casting is finding your locations, unlocking those. So we worked with a lot of resources, what we had. So locations being one, and just different props and things that we already had. So we and that really helped carve what we could do. So it was like my cinematographer at the time, Dana Olson, she had a lot of connections through her father with just like a club we could shoot at. It had a really nice field. Also like a shooting range that had some nice swampy areas that we could shoot at, and try not to have all the film lights sink into the mud, and also get eaten alive by mosquitoes. That's all these fun exterior location stories.
yeah.
It's without getting too far into the muck of all that stuff. It's the film is it's very difficult to make a sci-fi film without budget, for sure. I think that when I mentioned that sci-fi is the most expensive genre, it definitely is, just not just because of visual effects, but because of like just all of the elements that are involved in it. Comparatively to like other genres, it just ends up being more intensive to get done. With just the amount of elements that you need to get, usually just like the amount of shots, the type of actors that are involved, the amount of time for rehearsals, the locations oftentimes cost a lot, but that was pretty good for us. Extensive post-production, besides visual effects, sound design. So sound design is absolutely critical, and I've gotten a lot of feedback about the sound design and score being very good on this film, and Thank you for also mentioning the VFX. So, but post team was
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic. I love all of them. Jello Thompson was our VFX artist. Joe Vnuk was our sound designer.
Nice.
Kyle
Nice.
Wasilewski was our composer. They're all amazing. They've all gone on to do amazing things since working on the film. Kyle was worked on Alien Romulus, actually, as one of the tech engineers. I can't remember what's the exact title, but it was in the composition team. He didn't like write the music, but he was part of the team that did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think they were on the short list for the Oscars. So
I think I think
I don't know if did they get nominated.
They did, I think, for visual effects, I believe.
Oh, the visual effects. Yeah, sorry. I was talking about music. They were definitely on the short list for music. But yeah, they got nominated for VFX, which is great. I didn't know any of the VFX team on Romulus. But yeah, their music. A lot, going back to what I was saying before though, with the Something Somewhere and sci-fi, is that a lot of the money goes into just a lot of the different elements to make the movie. Horror, yes, horror is another genre that has a lot of elements as well, but for some reason you can get away with doing things more more cheaply and make it more believable. In sci-fi, it's not. It ends up being kind of what you're saying, what you were saying earlier, where it could be a little more cheesy, and you can lean into that, and that's fine. It can be funny or whatever, or if that's the style. But if you're trying to make it like contemporary or more serious, or in my case, like retro, it definitely it costs more. And also, that was another thing. It was a period piece, right, too. So like we cut so many corners in trying to make it so we didn't have to be like spend a lot of money on like changing signage and all of these things that would drive up the cost even more to make a period piece, because we were already technically over budget, with hitting that 20K. So we wanted to just like keep it down. So we're like, okay, we can make sure it's in the woods, not in like in kind of like metropolitan area, wherever it is, and make sure there's not like, we can't really see any cars. Unless we get a nice car. We tried finding a retro style car in our budget, and we didn't end up finding one in time for that one, but that'll be for a future project. It's a number of elements, but it ends up being a lot more expensive. But yeah, this was like the biggest project that I had ever worked on in terms of budget and just scale and all of that. So it was a privilege to be able to do that, and I thank my entire team. It wasn't just me. I brought the idea forward, but it was really all of the teams involved. It was a very sizable crew. It was like, I think we were like probably like 30. We were 30 plus for production, and then we had like at least one person in every department for post. So it was a full team. We didn't have there was least amount of hats wearing possible, except for Kale. We're going to mention Kale Manning. He was our finishing person and also our colorist. Freaking phenomenal dude. We love him. He was wearing a lot of hats for post-production already with that. So yeah, everybody involved in this project, I can't thank them enough. But it's so unique being able to be part of such a rich genre that I had grown up with. A lot of my favorite films were in sci-fi. Clearly, like Something Somewhere is inspired by almost every Steven Spielberg movie in existence. At least his early films, like Close Encounters and Jurassic Park and all and E.T. and all of those, and a plethora of other sci-fi movies like Contact and maybe a little bit of First Contact too. I didn't know how to think of it. Yeah, and like the Goonies and all of that. Just like having like a duo of guys that have to work together against the world. That's gonna become more apparent with what is happening next with the project.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
So you heard about this. So before I go into what's going to happen next, the film it's probably going to be. This episode will probably come out before or after I actually have a screening of it near whatever this is happening. So we're having a screening of the film in L.A. and Hollywood Boulevard at the TCL Chinese Theater.
I know, man. That is congratulations, man. That is awesome.
Thanks. Man, I found out like not that long ago. I was like, oh my God.
Man. What's your like reaction? I mean, like the cast and crew, their reaction? I mean,
yeah, they everybody was that I heard from about it was absolutely they were kind of mind boggled by it, and they were just like really they were really happy that it got to be that place, because it's just such a milestone, right, to have something play there, even if it's like I'm not going to the Oscars or anything, or I might not even win an award. It's just playing there, so it's just, and that aspect alone is just like, it's a big milestone for me and a big milestone for the rest of the filmmakers that helped with the film. So they who I talked to, they really loved that. So yeah, that's playing. If this comes out before the screening, it's playing on February 15th at 9:30 p.m. at the TCL at the Golden State Film Festival, Block BB. So if you want to check that out, but this might come out probably after that. So that's that might be moot, but it's playing there. But yeah, I could talk about what's happening next, which is what I was kind of being a little bit cryptic about.
Yeah. No, yeah. I was gonna ask if you had any future projects or something you're currently working on. Yeah, I'd love to hear.
I can talk about,
unless it's like,
I can talk about both of those. I'm currently working on my first feature debut. I'm working on a couple different scripts that I can't talk about them yet because they haven't been processed and copyrighted and all that stuff yet, but they're in the works. Right. But the main thing that is kind of important and relevant here is that the main purpose of making something somewhere was to make it as a pitch piece, or as some people call it, proof of concept. I don't like that term, but as a pitch piece for a TV show, which I'm currently in the talks with the same producer and the same writer of the short to expand it into a whole season.
Nice. Yeah, no, I could definitely see that, because the way that the film ended, it had on a ambiguous, like, oh, what's gonna happen next, and then next thing you know, then the film's over. So I was definitely thinking like, man, this could definitely continue as like a feature film, but as you pointed out, yeah, a TV show definitely could work like that.
Yeah,
And
all
again,
I'll say about this.
yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, like, especially just like diving more into like the sci-fi of it, because we don't see. I mean, there are some like sci-fi shows out there, but it's more, like not as much seen as like dramas or action, that sort of thing. So just to see more of that sort of genre being played out more, is definitely just really awesome to see.
Yeah, like adventure. Yeah, I haven't. I went to film. One of the reasons why I made this like kind of IP something somewhere was I went to film school, and really was around a lot of people who didn't like a lot of the same movies that I liked. Like I grew up all these blockbuster movies that I just mentioned that were inspirations for this, like Close Encounters and Jurassic Park and all of that. All these big IPs, and people were mostly into like these art house films and whatnot, which I have no problems with. But I was just like feeling like I wanted to make something that I really liked and that I felt like I would watch. And I don't really watch a lot of art house movies. I don't like them without putting, forcing a gun to my head for just education purposes, specifically, like like a metaphorical gun, right? Because they're good movies and they're great education for it. It's just not my like personal cup of tea. Like I like things with big stakes and having this juxtaposition between these raw stories and these big worlds that happen around them. Yeah, having being this film that it came out of that was really important to me. Sorry, I keep getting distracted. There was like I had a point to what I was talking about there. Besides talking about it being a film that came out of frustration, really. That's kind of what it was birthed out of. But I totally forgot what I was talking about in terms of the rest of that. Whatever. We'll figure it out later. I'll wake up at 3 a.m. and be like, oh my God, that was it.
Oh yeah. No, there have been moments where I've had like ideas, like film ideas, like 3, 4 in the morning, and it's like there are moments where it's like, oh, I'll just remember it in the morning, and then it just totally disappears. I'm like, oh, I should have written it down. So I'm always like writing down on like my notes app on my iPhone, or I've been doing like a lot of like like the voice memo app on your phone. So just like recording, like, okay, I had this idea where this guy does it, and then then I listen to it in the morning. And then I think like, okay, that was a good idea. I'll keep it, or if not, then I'll just delete it.
In the wise words of David Lynch, bless his heart, rest in peace. If you don't write it down, you'll want to kill yourself. Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like I've done the same thing where I think of something in the middle of the night. So, yeah, it's fine. I'll write it down later. No, it's gone. No, you're probably not going to want to kill yourself, but you do feel pretty bad. You're like, God dang it. I wish I remembered that. So I always keep a notebook on me, or I have like a Google Docs on my phone where I just like quickly jot things down in the middle of the night. It's like I'm glad I'm currently single because living that bachelor life, because I would annoy the heck out of any kind of partner, because it'd be like at 3 a.m. I would have like a wake up bolt upright with an idea, and I would have the blue light blaring because I'm like quickly typing it before I forget it.
Were there like any other like plans for the short film, like any more festivals or any like distribution plans or anything like that in particular?
Gotcha. Not any necessarily distribution plans. We're already on YouTube, which you can watch for complete for free, or PixQuid, which is also for free. You have to sign up for it. It's a Chicago-based streaming service slash. I think it's going to be a networking thing as well for filmmakers. I'm not a PixQuid spokesperson, so I can't really speak for that. But yeah, in terms of festivals, we have submitted it to a kind of a last leg of festivals. It has been running in festivals since we completed first version of the film in like 2023, and we started submitting. So this is our last leg. So we're waiting to hear back from a few more, but hopefully it'll be coming to a place near you to go see it. Follow our Instagram if you would like to keep in touch of when those will be, because I don't know off the top of my head right now, and I also don't know because we haven't heard back yet. But when we do, we'll post it on our Instagram.
Nice. Is there any last words, any word of advice for anyone listening to this? Anything you want to say before we sign off?
If you're a troubled artist out there, don't be too troubled. It will pass. Also, just keep at it. Just keep at it. But like, no matter how hard it gets, this industry will never stop being hard. If you like movies, or if whatever art, because this is going to be, I assume, for multiple type of arts, whatever art you're in, don't stop. If you love it, keep doing it. Even if you have to take a break for 2 seconds to get a different job and keep going back at it, get off the horse and get right back on. As they always say, if you fall, get right back up. Like Michael Caine says in Batman Begins, like, why do we fall? To pick ourselves up, kind of thing. Do that. It's so important as an artist to stand up for your work and also just keep going, because nobody else is going to do it for you. So don't feel intimidated by that. This is what you love to do. Do what you love to do and focus on that. Right? So yeah, that's kind of my last things. I would love it if you went and watched the movie Something Somewhere, because there's a lot of wonderful people who worked on it, including myself. I'm not saying I'm wonderful. I'll let you decide that. But everybody else who worked on it was very wonderful and talented. And we would love it if you went to check it out. It's completely for free. So it's up there for free. So you don't have to spend anything besides your internet bill, or you can go to your local Wi-Fi cafe or whatever. But yeah, I highly recommend it if you like anything Spielberg or sci-fi or a little bit of horror or any of those things, or the 80s. If you're a big fan of the retro sci-fi in the 80s, you'll love it as well. But that's me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Troubled Artists podcast. Have a great day.